Hi there. I'm Carl Brookins. I'm a crime fiction writer. My latest book is called Devil's Island. It's not about devils. It's about other evil, but real evil people, and a kick-ass female who settles his hash in some really interesting ways. It's also a sailing novel, so it's a lot of fun. I'm one of the hosts on this program called Minnesota Crime Wave Presents, and I'm here with one of my co-hosts, Ellen Hart, who is the interesting and talented writer of, I only say this because she's sitting across the table.
That's right.
And
I would kick you if you...
This really interesting series with a woman named Jane Lawless, who is a restaurateur in Minneapolis and gets into all kinds of interesting and difficult problems.
That's right.
And sometime we should talk about characters and about how Jane and her good friend, whose name escapes me at the moment, Cordelia, how those two came about, because actually we'll talk to Rich about that a little later.
We will, yeah.
And our guest today on this program is named Richard Thompson. He's a Twin Cities author of crime fiction, and we're going to talk to him a little bit later. But first, how have you been? What have you been reading? That's what I really wanted to ask you about. I know how you've been.
On a show devoted to mysteries and suspense, I haven't been reading any mystery and suspense.
Oh, well, that's right. Well, but remember, we talked to bookstore owners and we talked to other people.
Yes.
So I don't care. What have you been reading?
Well, I'm working on a standalone, and that is not a mystery, although it has a lot of mystery elements. So I've been reading, I've been reading a lot of quantum theory.
Quantum theory.
A lot
physics.
Of physics.
Really?
A lot of metaphysics, a lot of Karen Armstrong, a lot of John Polkinghorne, a lot.
Why?
Because that's the subtext of the book that I'm writing.
Oh, so it's basically research.
It's all research,
It's all grist for the mill,
Yep.
huh? I see. Okay.
And fascinating.
Well, that's good.
To me.
Well, and so what you have to do now is use the elements and shape it and make it
into a narrative.
That works.
I've got the narrative. What I don't have is all of the metaphysics, and that's what I'm trying to develop now. Right?
Yeah. Okay. Good. I read a really interesting book not too long ago that's been quite hot. The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo.
Oh, I'd love to read. That's Stieg Larsson.
That's the Stieg Larsson book. It's the first in the trilogy.
Did you like it?
Yes, I particularly liked the main character, although she's not, how do I say this? She's not the main character in a traditional sense. She's the protagonist and the catalyst of the book.
Okay.
And she has a dragon tattoo. It's a Swedish book, and the translation is wonderful.
Yeah, I just got it. I haven't had a chance to read it
yet.
but
It's very long.
Yeah, but that's
very
okay.
Long. And it is if it works, and this does.
Yeah.
I think after you get through the first 3 or 4 chapters, it takes a while, I think, to really get into it. And I guess, but that may be in part because I've been reading a lot of thriller and suspense and go real fast and kill a lot of people, and
Yeah, but you've got to give a book a little time to set things up and to get you interested.
I think so. But it's like what, 600 pages or something.
Yeah.
It's a long book. And I read a book a really interesting book from Echelon Press, which is my press, and one of the reasons I bring it up is, but it's a really good book. It's called Freezer Burn by Gail Carlane. She's a new PI. She used to be a house cleaner. Decided she didn't want to clean toilets the rest of her life. So she decided to become a PI. And I guess in Southern California, you can do that sort of easily.
Oh, that's cool.
Her lover is a cop, and her best friend works at the morgue.
I belong to a writing group. Mary Logue, Pete Houtman, Deborah Woodworth, KJ Erickson. And I just read a terrific novel. It's called Killer Librarian.
Really?
Yes.
See, Librarian.
By Mary Logue. And when that book gets published, that's going to be a great book.
Oh, interesting. Now, you know what we're going to do? We're going to take a break, because then we're going to talk to our guest, Richard Thompson. We want to allow plenty of time for him. So we'll take a break, and we'll be back in a few minutes. Well, we're back, and sitting next to me is our guest, Twin Cities author Richard Thompson, and my good friend Ellen Hart is going to do the introductions.
I am.
A bit, so there you go, Ellen.
Richard, do you prefer Richard or Rich?
Rich.
Rich, okay.
I don't use it professionally because the world is full of them.
Of Rich, okay, all right. Rich is the author of 2 mysteries, Fiddle Game, which was his first foray into the mystery genre, and now Fragbox is a nominee for this year's Minnesota Book Award. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Richard grew up in Austin, Minnesota, home of Spam, which you point out on your...
Really? That's right.
Real Spam.
The real Spam, right? The real.
I eat
cans.
Spam. I like Spam.
I used to eat it when I was a kid,
Well,
but you grew up on it, I'm sure.
Yeah, it paid my old man's salary for like 50 years.
There you go. You've had kind of a varied background. You've done a lot of things. You played banjo and homemade 12-string at coffee houses in and around Twin Cities.
Back in my wasted youth.
In your wasted youth, you went
still
to
play?
Not a lot, no.
I went to McAllister for 2 years, which I thought was interesting that you had your degree interests were mathematics and fine arts.
Well, that was the 2 things I was good at.
Sure.
You know, I had no idea if they had anything to do with each other or could have anything to do with each. Yeah, they probably do. But you know, I always wanted to do something creative for a living. You know, something more than what I saw my dad do. You know, spend 50 years going to a job that he hated every day because it was secure.
Well, you have a civil engineering degree, and you spent many years as the head of St. Paul building inspectors.
It's called the senior building inspector.
Yeah.
It's not the head of the department.
All right,
but,
okay.
But yeah, it's the.
So you spent a
the
lot
head
of years
the
in
inspector.
construction.
Yeah, I spent basically 45 years in construction. I really grew up in it. You know, and of course I did not get a degree from McAllister.
Yeah.
I ran out of money and ambition and direction and wound up actually graduating 15 years later from the U of M in civil engineering.
Okay.
Mainly not because I wanted to spend my days, you know, designing rivets for bridges that would later collapse, but because I was really tired of being talked down at by people who had that credential but didn't know anything about construction.
Sure.
You know?
So what I've never fully understood, I guess, is what exactly is a civil engineer as different from, I don't know, a bridge engineer, some other kind of engineer?
Bridge design is basically a subcategory of civil engineering.
Oh.
Most major public works are designed by civil engineers.
Do you have to be civil to do it, or can
No.
you? Oh, yeah.
Very few of them
Thank
are.